So what is Vo2 Max? Why is it important? And how can you actually go about improving it when you're out cycling or out running? What is up team, and welcome to today's video. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel where we talk all things endurance and improving your endurance without having to train for hours and hours each week. We all have busy lives, right? So there are three main elements that comprise our endurance or our kind of performance in endurance sports. And those things are lactate thresholds, so basically how well you can buffer and get rid of that lactate that our muscles produce when we exercise intensely. Our economy, so how economic are we? How well can we run? How well can we cycle? And how efficient are we? And then the third and final thing, which is what we're focusing on today, is our Vo2 Max. So whatever endurance sport you're doing, Vo2 Max is the amount of oxygen which you can take in and your body can utilize per minute. So it's measured in milliliters of oxygen per kilo of body weight per minute, and that's why you often see lighter athletes, for example, top level endurance athletes have a really high Vo2 max, not only because they're fit, but they're also light as well, so they can take in large quantities of oxygen and utilize it, but they're also fairly light, so milliliters of oxygen per kilo of body weight per minute. If you're anything like me and you like tracking your level of fitness or utilize some kind of app or have a Garmin or whatever it is, it will actually probably tell you your Vo2 max, or will estimate it anyway. If you want to find out your actual Vo2 max, you'll probably have to go into a performance lab and do a Vo2 Max test, in which it's an incremental exercise test, going harder and harder and harder and harder, whether you're cycling or running, and they'll measure your sort of gaseous exchange, so what you're breathing out and in, and work out at what level you're kind of at your maximal capacity in terms of the amount of oxygen you can utilize. But wearables, for example, like my Garmin, I'll throw it up actually on the screen now. Your Garmin will kind of, or whatever device you use, if it does it, will kind of predict what your Vo2 max is. So you may have seen this before. I'm also going to throw a graph up on the screen now, and this is if you were to take an actual Vo2 max test, what your results would look like. So you can see your kind of speed or power or effort along the bottom, and you can see as you're putting in more power, more effort, or going quicker, your sort of Vo2 max increases, or your Vo2, the amount of oxygen you're consuming and utilizing, increases, and then you actually get to a kind of cap, a level in which your body can't really utilize any more oxygen at all. And that is obviously, as we said, your Vo2 max. There you have it. That is your Vo2 max. That's what it means. Now, how do we actually go about improving it? And obviously, it's something you do want to improve. Endurance athletes will have very high Vo2 maxes, somewhere in the 70s, 80s, even 90s have been reported. People like myself, I think my Vo2 max is around about 56 to 59, somewhere like that. And for a good amateur, that's kind of where it will be. Obviously, we can lose weight. That will affect a part of the equation. Remember, milliliters per kilo, so you can lose weight. That will help your Vo2 max increase. However, the thing we're kind of looking at today is if we can increase our level of fitness, that will obviously increase our Vo2 max as well. But to increase our Vo2 max, we've got to work in specific, for specific durations, and there's been lots of studies out there to kind of show that working for specific durations, a certain number of times, will have a big impact on our Vo2 max, whether you're running or whether you're cycling. So we're going to go and head out on the run now, and then we're going to head out on the bike later on, and I will show you or give you some examples of sessions that you can do that will help positively impact your Vo2 max. And as we always talk about on this channel, the sessions are going to be really quick, really efficient, really effective, so you don't have to spend hours running or hours cycling. And luckily, Vo2 max is something that we can improve with some short, sharp efforts that don't take too long. So with a little bit of warm up, a little bit of a cool down, and then some intervals in between, we can really have a beneficial effect on our fitness and our Vo2 max. So let's do it, let's head out on the run. I'll see you out there. So when planning a successful interval session to improve our Vo2 max, we need to look at the time. So the time in which we're running the hard intervals, the time in which we're resting as well between those, the intensity in which we're running or cycling, and then also how many intervals should we be doing in total. So how long should our intervals be? Anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes has been shown to have a big effect on our Vo2 max. How intense should we be running those? Well, around about zone 5 if you're tracking your heart rate, and that's around 90% of your max heart rate and above. Basically, as hard as and fast as you can run for between 3 and 5 minutes. The rest in between those intervals could only be anywhere between 2 to 4 minutes. You want to fully recover so you can go all out again on your next interval, but you don't want to be taking so long that you're fully recovered and then sort of resting fully in between each one. So anywhere between 2 to 4 minutes is great. The longer your rest is, maybe start to incorporate a slow jog just to keep your heart rate elevated. And then anywhere between 3 to 6 times doing these intervals will be a good place to start. More if you're more experienced, less if you're less experienced. So some good sessions to try will be 6 by 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off, obviously with a warm up and cool down either side, or 4 by 5 minutes on, 4 minutes off. And in those 4 minutes off, you just do a slow jog because 4 minutes is quite a long period to be off. And again, intersperse this or put that in between a warm up and a cool down. So there you go, 2 sessions to give a try and the kind of reasons behind those intervals as well. That was tiring. So running intervals done for the week, and I'll actually throw up on the screen now. You can actually see my threshold increased because of today's run, and that's something my Garmin tells me actually week on week, because I'm achieving kind of higher speeds for each interval while kind of keeping a similar heart rate each week, so you can see you're getting fitter. So whatever device you have, it might tell you, whether Garmin, Polar, whatever you use, it might tell you those sorts of things. But it's interesting just to keep an eye on your paces and things, or your speed and your heart rate during those intervals, and you can see if you're getting fitter. But let's fast forward to tomorrow. I'm going to do some Vo2 intervals on the bike, so let's go through some sessions in which you can do on the bike. So we don't really need to change those sessions too much from what we created for running. The only thing that you would need to change was the intensity. So depending if you're a trained cyclist or not, your heart rate might not get up as high because you're not having to support your body weight. So if you know your functional threshold power, so the power you can sustain for an hour, somewhere around 110 to 120% of this. But basically, just as hard as you can work for the specified time you are completing the interval. So it's exactly the same as when you were running, just as hard as you can go for the time period you're working for, and the time periods are exactly the same. So 2 sessions. I like to add a little bit more rest in for the cycling because it's a little bit more leg dominant and going to tax legs a bit more. So 6 by 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, so a little bit longer rest in terms of the first session, and then 5 by 5 minutes on, so a little bit longer in terms of the interval for that one. Again, somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes is great, and then 5 minutes off, so a little bit longer rest just to let the legs recover. There you have it. Hopefully you found that somewhat useful and means your training will improve a little bit moving forwards, and you now have some sessions that you can try and kind of know the theory and the science behind why we are doing what we're doing when we're working for specific kind of times or intensities in terms of our intervals. So do let me know down below in the comments if you try any of the sessions, and let me know how you get on. They are fairly tough, but you'll be rewarded with increased fitness week on week. Please do subscribe, like the video, share with your family and friends, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.